Episode 443, everyone. I so hope you're having a great day. This is Murray Stewart. I'm your host. It is episode 443, yes? And this is Blind Magic in Alice Springs. This is Blind Magic in Alice Springs, and that was Chris that you heard in the background, who is producing this episode for me. So anything that goes wrong from here on will be his fault, and if it goes brilliantly, I'll give myself a pat on the back. That's how it goes, Chris, isn't it?
It's pretty fair to middling.
So I'm sure it'll all go well. Okay. Let me talk about weather. Weather, more particularly, let's talk about weather in Australia. I believe that I got a pretty good overview of the climatic conditions throughout this nation, as I have lived for extended periods in the Hunter Valley and Sydney region, and in Melbourne, and now here in Alice Springs. I have also visited from time to time the tropics, Cairns. So when I talk about weather, I talk about it in a couple of ways. Weather that makes me feel good, and weather that excites me. Because you see, when I was a child, I was absolutely enthralled with weather. I truly believe, had I been dealt another hand of cards, and in other words, had I not been totally blind or vision impaired, I would have been working for the Bureau of Meteorology as a meteorologist. I was so keen on the weather when I was young. I used to write to the local weatherman, Des Hart, when I lived in Newcastle. I knew all of the clouds. Oh, yes, I did. I knew all of the clouds. I knew what they all meant in terms of cirrus or cirrus stratus, altus stratus, cumulonimbus, and so on and so forth. I used to do my own weather forecast. I absolutely did. I used to do the weather forecast for the family. I would give them a 24-hour, 48-hour, or a 7-day forecast. I was ahead of my time, wasn't I? Back there in the 70s in the Hunter Valley. Yes, I was across it all. And I still am enthralled by weather today. But you know something? I live in a town where the weather is almost too good. It's that good, it's boring. I can say that from someone who is genuinely excited and enthralled by weather. When I first moved here, back in 2001, I purchased myself a weather station. Little did I know that weather station would literally disintegrate in the heat of the sun here in Alice Springs. So that was the end of that. So next time I buy a weather station, I'll make sure that it's made for the conditions, and hopefully that won't happen next time round. Because of course these days you have sensor devices that are the gauges for the monitor, and therefore can provide you with the wind speed and direction, the humidity, whether or not it's raining, all of that sort of stuff. but it was those senses that literally disintegrated under the Central Australian sun. But yeah, every aspect of weather I'm excited by. The barometric pressure. That tells me a lot about whether there is a storm approaching. Also, I'm interested in the humidity, the wind speed and direction. And naturally also want feedback on what has happened over the past 24 hours in terms of rainfall. So when I think about the area that I have experienced in Australia that excites me in terms of weather, it most definitely is the tropics. I will never forget that day at the Australian Athletics Championships in December in Cairns. I think it was back in 2019. The wind was extreme, well over 100 kilometres an hour. I remember the umbrella that I had blew inside out and eventually it smashed into pieces. So was the strength of the wind. And the rain, wow, over 180 millimetres of rain we got that day. It was something else. The weather in Alice Springs, yes, it is a little boring because it's so good, but wow, does it make you feel good? It does. So I related in those terms, weather that makes you feel good, definitely Alice Springs leads the way insofar as the towns and cities that I've lived in Australia. And I say that because even when it's hot, it's dry, so it's bearable. You can escape from the heat simply by being inside, AC on, ice tinkling in a glass of something nice, no problem. Even in the winter time, it's bearable because once again, there's little if any rain. Yes, it's very cold in the morning, but by around lunchtime, the weather is sensational. And it makes you feel good to get out and have a lovely walk with the sun, the warmth of the sun, making you feel great, lending you its vitamins. Oh yes, the weather in Alice Springs definitely makes you feel good. Even now, before the pending blazing hot summer, the weather's quite okay. We know it's going to get hot, but it won't be humid. It'll be humid. It'll be fine, absolutely fine. But yes, I do love my storms. I do love hearing the lightning on the radio, that static. And I do love monitoring the weather. So if I wanted to be in an area where the weather would excite me, definitely Cairns would be the place. So that's pretty much wrapped it up for you. I remember being in Sydney, not too bad. The hot days would normally be preceded by a beautiful cool change at night. We used to call that the southerly buster. So that was okay. You normally wouldn't go any more than a couple of days before a southerly buster would come along. So Not too bad in Sydney. I suppose you'd call it a bit of an all-rounder, weather that made you feel okay, plus some of the weather that would excite one like me that is, who loves weather. As for Melbourne, well, too cold for me these days. I used to brave the conditions almost every morning going to work. Cold and wet. Oh, no thank you, not now. I didn't mind it from time to time, and I don't mind it every now and again when I visit Melbourne. You know, get a little bit of that cold and wet stuff on your skin. Feels rather cleansing after day after day of dry, beautiful weather here in Alice. So sometimes to get a bit of a break, get something a little different happening is a good thing. But anyway, wrapping it up, weather that makes you feel good, Alice Springs, without a doubt. Weather that excites me, Cairns. Absolutely. I wonder where your favourite areas are. This has been episode 443, a Blind Mandy Communications production.